and greetings. Thank you for joining me for another episode of In Right Standing, a podcast for the unique, peculiar, and chosen who want to live right and at the end of the day, be in right standing with themselves and others. I'm your host, Jada Cofield, and on today's episode, I want to continue our conversation about the types of women, focusing today on the bitter woman. To be bitter means to be angry, hurt, or resentful because of one's bad experiences or a sense of unjust treatment. If something tastes bitter, it is not sweet. Bitter people view life as a drudgery and never learn to live an abundant life. They usually have a bad attitude or disposition about a person, people, place, or population. Bitter women are snappy and critical at the smallest of things. It is very normal for a bitter woman to have a bad attitude similar to that of a teenage girl. Like the boastful woman, the fruit of the spirit is obsolete or small. You never really hear of any victories or enjoyable moments in these women's life. Their stories are always bad happenings. Bitter women are easily attracted to and instantly connect with other bitter people. They enjoy identifying with other persons of struggle, misfortune, or abuse. When bitter people are hurt, they lash out with offensive and or abusive behavior and reactions, or shut down completely and brood. Those reactions are usually not warranted, but their pain justifies their response, which is a measure of the depth of the wounds. Bitter people hear what they want to hear. Two of the roots of jealousy are unforgiveness and bitterness. Forgiveness to them is if I decide to forgive you, and their decision is not to forgive, nor will they forget. They hold lifetime grudges. And bitter people like to have control. I especially find this character trait in women who have been abused or violated. The decision to be in control, she believes, protects her from the fear of getting hurt ever again. Pushback, defense, paranoia, and lack of trust is her weapon of choice. With bitter people, everything is profoundly serious, and they have no patience for others or situations. The truth is, they pretty much dislike everything and everybody. Bitter people do not grow up or in wisdom. They grow in age and are often stuck at the age and time of the offense. Bitter women choke out, sabotage, and self-destruct their own life by how she thinks, speaks, and reacts instead of responding to what happened. Bitter people curse their own success. Every time I try to get ahead, nothing ever works out for me. I can't ever get ahead. I'm probably next. Nothing good happens for me. Things never work out for me. Every time I turn around, it's something. They actually do a very self-destructive job on themselves. They are hard to bear, overwhelming emotionally, resentful, and cynical. She plays tug-of-war emotional games. For example, when you ask, what is wrong? Nothing. I'm fine. Okay. Bitter leaders lead and bleed using the bitterness as a cover to actually motivate their behavior, leading, or lifestyle choices. Bitter women feel as though they are the outcast and create false narratives about being mistreated when in fact, they are the ones who are standoffish or looking for a problem before one even occurs. Most bitter women don't understand and were not taught that anger, unforgiveness, and bitterness are a form of brain damage and mental illness due to the lack of mental healing and proper mental hygiene, which is why, according to the Canadian Mental Health Association, the relationship between mental health, mental illness, and chronic physical conditions are fundamentally linked. People living with a serious mental illness or are at higher risk of experiencing a wide range of chronic physical conditions. Conversely, people living with chronic physical health conditions experience depression and anxiety at twice the rate of the general population. The latest research to give credence to the link between state of mind and health is a recent study from Concordia University that has found constant bitterness can make a person ill. Holding on to bitterness can affect metabolism, immune response, or organ function, and lead to physical disease. Researchers say, therefore, bitter people tend to develop sicknesses such as arthritis, ulcers, breast cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, fibroids, tumors, constant headaches and sensitivity to light, fibromyalgia, acid reflux, infertility, kidney stones, and Alzheimer's. A bitter person is physically, mentally, and emotionally decaying. Bitter women are miserable, and if you bring it to their attention, they will try to either squash your joy, avoid you at all costs, or put on a public performance of great happiness. Bitter people like to use their success or things to prove a point to the abusers or naysayers. But when it comes to everyone else's success, it is minimized or criticized unless it is a place they dream to be or they know the person. Unfortunately, bitter people are professional and successful liars. When a bitter person shares the trauma that happened to them, there is an abnormal disconnect. The story has become so grafted into their life and psyche, coupled with being unresolved or healed, it renders them nonchalant about extremely disturbing situations. They adapt stories often and lie about the outcome to benefit their judgments, decision-making, or even your perception of them. Bitter people believe their own lie and tell it more than once. When they do call themselves coming clean, it's limited facts mixed with what they want you to believe about the situation. They never tell the truth of the story, only their side and interpretation. Bitter people are some of the most difficult people to be mentally intimate with or develop meaningful relationships with. Bitter women think their frankness, assertiveness, or straightforwardness is them being honest or keeping it real. So as far as they are concerned, they do not lie. Lying is so ingrained in them, they see nothing wrong with leaving out details, twisting the truth, or altering the story altogether. Lying to a bitter person is survival, a way of life and their prerogative. In their eyes, they are either the hero or the victim. Bitterness breeds contempt. With contempt comes complaining. Just like the children of Israel, their complaining led them to the inability to see the grace of God or make the necessary changes, therefore forcing them to repeat and circle back around or wander for 40 years in a journey meant to take 11 to 14 days to complete. You would think someone said, let's mark a tree like Johnny was here or Jada was here or something. So when they passed that tree again, somebody was like, hey, we lost. I remember being in Kuwait and our driver was talking on the phone in his native tongue, but I could discern that there was anxiety in his voice. And then I noticed the turns he was making and we circled around the city fountain. I yelled out to the other colleagues. I was like, hey, the driver's lost. And no one wanted to pay attention to me. And I yelled it out again. The driver is lost. Then the pilot stopped talking and ignoring me and realized we're about to end up in the desert in the middle of Kuwait. Turns out he was lost. Can I ask you a question? Do you know when you're off track, lost, or missing your exit? Better yet, do you know if you're bitter? Bitter women are petty and fuss about dumb and pointless matters. Extending grace and mercy to others is non-existent. If my daddy never left me, if I never was hurt, if my ministry would just grow, if they would have given me the promotion, if she or he would have loved me, if I never got a divorce. Sadly, the bitter person does not know the love of Christ and does not extend love. However, they want everybody to love them. They cannot teach on love or lead by the example of Christ's love. These types of leaders have built their empire on other skills or manipulations, but not love. Having true love and being loving are two different things. Bitter people know how to act loving, do loving things, and have loving ways, even teach very shallow teachings on love, but their heart is not rooted and grounded in love. And one of the worst effects of bitter leaders, people and women, is it reproduces itself. Bitter people have bitter children, workers, associates, friends, or ministry leaders who are sterile and nice nasty. When I was 16, I had a very vocal bitterness in my heart towards a person, and everyone who met me knew it. I did not know any better until one day my mother's best friend at the time, Kathy, came by the house to visit me, and she wanted to talk to me about forgiveness and the love of Christ even at 16. And from that day on, I have not harbored in my heart bitterness for extensive periods of time, and I forgive quickly. And when I do share, I tell the truth. I have no bitterness. I state the facts and tell you once, and I'm done. It's up to you to do what you want with the information. All because of another woman helping me at 16 process my feelings and show me how bitterness was not right for me. Women who don't help other women will be crippled with guilt most of their life. That guilt will cause them never to fulfill their full potential in life. They become a fraud, and others will see it. When you are hurting, it does not mean you cannot share your story. Pain has to speak. It's how you allow it to speak and dictate your present and future that matters. According to the author Chip Tipping in his book, Radical Forgiveness, the truth is that there is no such thing as a negative emotion. Emotions only become bad and have a negative effect on us when they are suppressed, denied, or unexpressed. Positive thinking is really just another form of denial. I know how to walk through my feelings. I've learned how to process my feelings. I'm aware of pain when it occurs. I'm entitled to my feelings, and I've learned to express them in a mature way rather than an adult child. It can be done. I have had things happen to me just like you and have experienced tremendous levels of rejection across the world. I'm okay. I am healed, and so can you. A bitter woman's healing starts by her acknowledging the injustice. Hey, this happened. Understanding of forgiveness, reconciliation, restoration, and restitution with your past and others. This will take time because the bitter woman has built up a wall and resistance to any type of love, affection, and joy. Forgiveness, my sister, is not a one-off event. There have been days I repeatedly in my heart and mind say I forgive her, him, and them, and have things in place to release the pain, such as talking it out, doing something creative, or dancing to release my unexpressed frustration. It doesn't mean I'm overlooking or giving them a pass for what they have done. No, I'm saying I'm freeing myself of the emotional and mental torture of the hurt that has inflicted upon me so I can move on with my life. I am no longer your psychological, emotional prisoner of hostage. So many of you are stuck in that day, that moment. And even though you are in the now, you operate in yesterday. You're wearing bell bottoms, baby, when it's skinny jeans. And you wonder why you cannot seem to progress how you desire. When bitterness, unexpressed hurt takes root, it begins to hurt you and others. And this is where you find people develop addictive behaviors to compensate for the pain, like smoking and drugs, illicit, unprotected, and reckless sex, drinking, porn addiction, gambling, lying, stealing, eating disorders, and insomnia. Forgiveness, my friend, is self-discipline, lifestyle, and a way to successful living. It should be one of the first spiritual tools and lessons we are given by others in our childhood because we will need it in life. Furthermore, have you ever taken the time to stop being bitter with yourself? Say, sorry to you. I forgive you, Jada, and release me from me. Allow yourself the opportunity to become sweet again. Allow yourself the human mortal right to heal. Most importantly, allow yourself to be loved. Ooh. And please understand, for some of you, your bitterness may have been inherited. According to Mark Wolin, founder and director of the Family Constellation Institute and the author of It Didn't Start With You, How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle, states a family trauma can be passed down for up to 4 generations. You may be bitter and angry because your mother, grandmother, or great-grandmother was bitter due to trauma. The pioneering cell biologist Bruce Lipton states, the mother's emotions such as fear, anger, love, and hope, among others, can biochemically alter the genetic expression of her offspring. Chronic or repetitive emotions like anger and fear can imprint her child, essentially preparing or pre-programming how the child will adapt to its environment by passing it on in the womb. So for some of you who say you were born with a preposition of just being unhappy and bitter, I believe you. Bitterness runs the risk of developing when there is a violation, misunderstanding, or unresolved injustice of any sort. And that, my ladies, happens to us all. There is also a difference between being broken versus bitter. If your brokenness doesn't heal, it becomes bitterness. I wanted to rush through this teaching and keep it short. However, a few months ago, after preparing this podcast, something transpired and I was becoming terribly upset. I personally am very in tune with my body, and I could tell that I had just experienced something that was making me feel some kind of way. And the thoughts of the situation kept going through my mind, and I felt like the frustration of the situation wanted to turn into bitterness. It was as if the feelings were looking for somewhere to land internally to take root. I could feel it. I had to figure this out. And then at that moment, man, what I realized that what I was feeling, it was that I was fretting because I wanted justice. And the fretting wanted to take root as bitterness. I wanted God's justice in the matter because the situation had not been resolved. So I understand you, my sister, when you are bitter, and I won't write you off. You and I are entitled to God's justice. And what happens is that most of us are not taught how to wait for justice or how to not let bitterness take root. We are told we are wrong and bitter because we are waiting for the person to fall. However, seeking God's justice when a person, people, or organization has done you wrong is not wrong. Wanting to see God come through on your behalf is okay. What is not okay is wanting it when you want it, harboring the pain that turns into bitterness, not being able to process the pain, not moving on or slandering, wanting them to fall, and refusing to be patient about the justice of the Lord. According to Pastor Tim Keller, to wait for justice then is not primarily about punishment or even fairness. To wait for justice is to wait for shalom, a state of peace, blessedness, and well-being in God. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, and when they carry out their wicked schemes, do not get angry, do not seek revenge, and do what is right, for evildoers will be cut off. You will be vindicated and rewarded for doing the right thing and being in right standing with God. Waiting means a deeper sacrifice of self and forgiving God. Bitterness sets in because not only are we mad at them, we get mad at God for either taking too long, not doing anything at all, or allowing it to continue, or it having even happened. Patience lets you forgive God for what you think he may or may not have done. Many of you have a grudge against Christ because you simply cannot understand why he allows something so wicked, vile, and painful to happen to you. I've been there. I can understand your anger. It is justified. But remember, God's justice is patience in coming to understand the truth and seeing how he will vindicate you. And ladies, those of you who have been violated, which means many things to God, by anyone, please know you don't have to curse him or her or wish ill against the violator. Any man or woman that violates a woman is already living under a mark from God. Just like Tamar in the Old Testament, she requested her violator to do right by her, and he refused, and he was punished. We must help each other as women to not become bitter by ushering each other into a safe place with God and giving each other a safe place to share, knowing they can trust you with the information as a sister. I remember about 15 years ago, a young lady shared something with me, and I remember saying, God, I want to handle her like I would want someone to handle me or my daughter. And guess what? 15 years later, I encountered a similar experience, and the number of women who rallied around me was nothing but God. I knew that was the grace, mercy, and love I sowed 15 years ago in that young lady's life. You must learn how to help, because we are just as much as responsible for some of the bitterness others have experienced through rejection alone, especially in the church. According to statistics, the number one reason women come to church is to be protected, yet we in the church are the ones doing the rejecting or hurting. Along with being protected, the number two reason is to be seen. Do you see me as a woman, even if I'm bitter or hurting? Most women I talk to and counsel, I say to them, I hear you, I understand you, I believe you, and you are entitled to your feelings. I see you, bitter woman, and I end with this. Work at getting along with each other and with God. Otherwise, you'll never get so much as a glimpse of God. Make sure no one gets left out of God's generosity. Keep a sharp eye out for weeds of bitter discontent. A thistle or two gone to seed can ruin a whole garden in no time. Thank you for listening to me today. Be sure to email me at hello@inrightstanding.com. I care about you and I want to hear from you. And remember, I want you to be in right standing with yourself, with others, and most importantly, with Christ. Until next time, and you listen to me, the Lord be with you. Bye.